When Chinwe dropped the call, her hands trembled. She had expected shouting, maybe even tears from her younger brother Ugo, but instead he responded with calmness, maturity, and the most shocking of all, forgiveness, and said, Sister Chinwe, Papa is still our father. He carried this family since Mama died. I may be hurt, yes, but hate I can't. I forgive him. His words echoed in her head like a song she couldn't turn off. Find me another wife, but not one that looks like our mother. Tears filled Chinwe's eyes, not out of pain, but out of confusion, guilt, and relief all at once. But even as she tried to process her brother's response, she knew one thing clearly. Judith's journey was just beginning. Judith was sitting on the edge of her bed. Her hands gently caressed her growing belly. She was only 2 months gone, but the weight of shame made it feel like 9. The words of Chief Okoli kept replaying in her head. I will marry you if it comes to that. She closed her eyes. But should I? Can I even live with myself? She had fallen in love with Ugo, or so she thought. But now, things were no longer black and white. She was pregnant for his father, his own father. Then came a knock. She opened the door and it was Chinwe. Chinwe walked in silently, sat beside her, and stared at her for a long time before speaking. And she said, Judith, he's my father, and you were supposed to be my sister in law. But life has twisted everything. Judith's voice broke, tears streaming down her cheeks, and she said, I didn't plan this. I didn't seduce him. I swear I didn't. I believe you, Chinwe replied softly. But the truth doesn't change the damage. They both sat in silence for a while. Then Chinwe touched Judith's hand and said, Ugo knows. Judith's heart skipped, and she said, He knows? Yes, Papa told him, and he forgave him, Chinwe said. Judith froze, her jaw dropped, and she said, he forgave him? Chinwe nodded and continued. Ugo says he still loves us all, but he's asked me to find him another woman, one who doesn't remind him or any one of us about Mama. At that moment, Judith broke down again and said, So what happens to me now? Will Chief Okoli truly marry me? Will society let me live in peace? Chinwe looked at her carefully and whispered, Judith, are you even ready to marry a man old enough to be your father? Do you love him? Or do you feel trapped by your mistake? That question lingered, and Judith had no answer. Meanwhile, Chief Okoli sat alone in his study, staring at a framed photo of his late wife, Ada. Ada, forgive me. I know I have failed you. But when I saw Judith, I saw you. I just wanted a second chance. I never meant to hurt our son, he said. He poured himself a drink. His hands shook. The burden of his decisions of impregnating his son's fiancée weighed heavily on him, and he said, Will Judith ever look at me with true love, or only with fear and regret? The next day, Chief Okoli asked Judith to meet him at a discreet lounge in town. She came, dressed simply, her face pale but determined. He looked at her with the same soft eyes, the same warmth, but she didn't smile. And he said, Judith, he began, I've spoken to Ugo. He knows everything. I want to make things right. I will marry you. I will take care of the child. She looked at him for a long time, then finally spoke, and she said, Chief, do you truly love me, or do you love who I remind you of? The question hit him like thunder. He stammered, taken aback, and he said, I, I don't know. I see Ada in you, but I also see you. Maybe is both. Judith sighed and said, I need time. I can't make this decision in a hurry. He nodded and said, take all the time you need. Just know that I am here. I won't let you go through this alone. As Judy turned to leave, she walked past a table, and there, sitting alone, was someone who knew her. A woman, slender, dark skinned, eyes sharp like razor. Judith stopped in her tracks. The woman smirked and said, so it's true, Judith. I always knew you were capable of scandal, but this, pregnant for your father in law, you've outdone yourself. Judy's mouth fell open and she said, Uju, what are you doing here? I came for drinks, but now I came for news, she told her. She stood up slowly. This story, this disgrace, it won't stay hidden for long, she told her again. And just like that, a new storm was brewing. Some secrets shake families, others change destinies. Rumors spread like wildfire. The news that Judith was pregnant for Chief Okoli, her supposed fiancé's father, hit the community like a thunderstorm. Women gossiped in the markets. Men shook their heads in disbelief. Judith became the topic, the example, the scandal, the one who got pregnant for her future father in law. But despite the shame and whispers, Judith stood strong. 1 month later, Judith walked down the aisle not with Ugoh, but with Chief Okoli. The wedding was private, modest, and guarded. Only a few respected family members were present. Ezinne, Chinwe, and surprisingly, Ugoh, who flew in from abroad. Chief Okoli wore a crisp white agbada with silver embroidery. He looked younger that day, filled with hope or maybe regret. Judith wore a gown, simple yet elegant. Her eyes were steady, though one could sense the burden of her choices. When the officiating priest asked her, do you take this man as your lawfully wedded husband? She hesitated only for a second. Then she said, I do. Later that evening, Ugo pulled her aside quietly. He looked at her, then at her growing belly, and said, take care of my father and that child. Thank you, Ugo, she whispered. I've moved on. He smiled faintly. You should too. Just make it count, Ugo told her. He turned and walked away. And Judith cried. 3 years later, Judith and Chief Okoli are living peacefully. She now has a daughter and is expecting another child. Chief Okoli's health is a bit fragile, but he glows every time he carries their daughter Ada, named after his late wife. Judith has matured, graceful, wise, and more composed. She opens a non-profit organization for young girls, teaching them how to avoid emotional manipulation and choose wisely, especially in the absence of parental figures. But every time she sees Ugo's photo, she remembers that things could have been different if distance didn't create silence. Thank you for watching. This is where our story ends. But before we end it, let's look into our moral lessons. Emotional vulnerability breeds unwise decisions. Judy didn't plan to fall for Chief Okoli, but emotional confusion and gifts blurred her judgment. Silence in families can lead to unseen damage. If Ugo and Judith had better communication, things might have turned out differently. The past can haunt the present. Chief Okoli saw his late wife in Judith. Instead of healing, he transferred emotional attachment, leading to a scandalous relationship. Forgiveness is powerful, but scars remain. Ugo forgave his father, but the wound changed the course of their lives. Be mindful of who you bring into your home. Sometimes resemblance and presence can steer emotions and consequences no one expected. On distance relationships, distance can test trust. Distance can magnify silence. Distance can allow others to fill the space meant for you. In this story, Ugo's absence created a vacuum, one his father unintentionally or not filled. So if you are in a distance relationship, communicate often, visit when you can, set boundaries, and guard your home, even from within. This concludes our story. Thank you once again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share, and also touch the bell button so that you will be notified each time we put out new video. Subscribe for more stories with powerful life lessons. Please and please subscribe to help us grow our channel. And also, please don't forget to leave your comments, your suggestions, your questions in the comment section, and we'll come back to deal with it. God bless you all as you do so. Bye bye. I love you. Mwah.